Dontrell Inman is the guy that I always forget about, but he was so efficient for us, especially in like the red zone, I believe, right? Like, didn't he do well for us in the red zone? I mean, not great. I mean, he only had 18 receptions, but he had 2 touchdowns. So he had a touchdown, but on almost on over 10% of his receptions. So that's a pretty good touchdown rate, just saying. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I mean, if they could end up having like Logan Thomas, right? Like throw the pass, like if it was a trick play for Logan Thomas, obviously play quarterback. I think Isaiah Wright would make sense coming out of the slot. You know, like you divert and you have a guy that barely plays, like he's not a main part or a focal part of the offense, and he's lined up right next to the tight end. So you divert the attention from the slot receiver using the tight end. Meanwhile, the tight end completes a 28-yard pass. It's genius. It's
I can't find it. I'm trying. I can't find it.
I can look it up on StatHead here in a second. So, anyways, man, what you got going on today? What'd you end up doing?
I worked. Went to the gym. It was a nice little back to Monday. You know, it was nice to get back to the gym after a crazy week last week. But yeah, just a normal Monday.
Whew. And Mondays are rough for me. I normally go out. I normally go out on Sundays because I bartend obviously on the weekends. So then like Sunday's like my Friday essentially. Dude, I messed up so bad on Twitter on multiple different like occasions this morning. Like it was bad. Like I was reading tweets wrong. My dog is barking in the background. This is amazing radio. This is just great radio.
What time did you get up this morning?
Still get up kind of early. I got up at like 8. I normally wake up at like 6 or 7 because if I can get up at 6 or 7, I can hit the gym and then I can come home, like, you know, do all my responsibilities I got to take care of, walk my dog, get my stuff set up, eat lunch, and then I normally start working at like 12, and then I go from like, well, it could be 11, and then I go from like 11 until like 11 o'clock at night working on fantasy intervention stuff. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I can't wake up after a night of drinking and go to the gym. It's just not going to happen. Used to be able to, but not anymore.
It's the life of a bartender. Tonight, I feel like a fancy gal. I feel like a fancy broad.
Yeah. No chance, especially after last night.
No,
if I were you.
I'm a fancy gal. I got some beers behind me when I finished the glass of wine, but you know, I had ribs tonight, and of course, red wine.
Well,
goes
you did have a
down
dinner. You did have a dinner with everyone, so I definitely would have been a wine. Definitely would have been a wine night. Maybe some liquor, not beer though.
Yeah, I made myself a cocktail a little bit earlier, but I actually picked up the Angel's Envy port barrel finish. Whew. So good. It's one of my favorites. I like the rye port barrel finish more, but I had a sip of that to start out my dinner with. But let's go ahead and kick off this show. We have some people in the chat. We're ready to rock and roll. Make sure you guys keep those comments coming. Keep those questions coming. This is the Washington intervention. So get excited to talk some Washington football team. We're going to be diving into prop bets tonight, talking about if the Washington football team actually improved their chances of possibly making the playoffs once again. Making it deeper in the playoffs, what the record's going to be. But more importantly, we're going to talk about individual players and seeing if they can actually overcome what they did last year or increase their output from last season. I am joined tonight by Mark Krauchik. You can find him at MarkKrau on Twitter. Mark Crow on Twitter.
What's going on, man? Everyone. Monday.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's it. Case of the Mondays. Let's see who got COVID this week today at camp.
God, dude, do we have to touch on
COVID?
I don't. Football team
it's a disaster, and that's all I want to say. That's it. That's all we're touching on. It's a mess.
It's crazy, right? Because like of all teams, right, to have as many COVID cases as they have, like Washington football team should be the last one because of their coach with Ron Rivera.
I really don't get it. I actually did read something today that said they had good vaccinations yesterday. Obviously, there was no numbers put to that or anything, but I'd really like to see 60% at some point in time soon. We've got how many teams that are at 90%, and we're just sitting over 50.
Oh, man, it's brutal.
Absolutely.
It hurts. And I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, like I don't blame these guys. I'm not going to judge them for not getting a COVID vaccination, but at least protect yourself. Like, don't go out and put your team at risk. Like, what are you guys doing? You know that nobody's vaccinated on the team. Why are you going out and treating it like it's not existent?
We've had more in this past week than we did all of last year. And again, the biggest thing that bothers me is Rivera as our coach, and obviously he's at risk. So that is my concern. Other than that, to each his own. But yeah, just get vaccinated at this point in time. Stop playing around.
If you have a responsibility to do that, I'm not going to pressure you to do it, but at least take care of yourself. Make sure you're not putting everybody else at risk. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to dive too much into it. Kirk Cousins has COVID, so cool. Anyways, let's go ahead and let's bounce over to what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to discuss a little bit of the NFC East to an extent, some of the division rivals, but for the most part, we're going to talk about some of these over-unders that Vegas has set for Washington and for the rest of the teams in the NFC East. It's interesting because, this division was so bad last year. It was incredibly bad. Part of that was, because of the fact that the offensive line for the Eagles, was hurt and Carson Wentz wasn't able to have time to throw the ball. You have the Washington football team where Alex Smith came back, but it still just wasn't, right. Like they didn't have offensive weapons outside of Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas to an extent, and of course, Terry McLaurin. Then you had the Giants who had no offensive weapons at all. Saquon Barkley got hurt, and Dak Prescott. So sitting there and looking at it, this division should be much better than what it was last year. But it seems like coming out, maybe this is just because it's America's team and everybody always wants to root for the Cowboys. And I can't remember who said this, but the Cowboys always win. The Cowboys always win, no matter who it is, or no matter, what the hype is around it. The Cowboys always win the month of July.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now. I can't see. I've seen enough CD Lamb videos to last me for a long time. I know he's great. He's not going up against anybody in practice. But the hype is definitely building. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is the hype is for Dallas especially is just building and building and building. I mean, my biggest fear is the Giants this year. And they've, kind of had the injury bug kind of bite them a little bit this past week or so. Saquon's scaring the heck out of everybody. The Giants scare me a heck of a lot more than Dallas does. But I do agree with you. The hype train is growing. Maybe it's because, I don't know. We'll see. Let Dak be Dak. But, CD can't make enough nice catches for Cowboy fans right now.
Man, but his catches are so nice. No, I honestly, I believe that the Cowboys, if their defense fixes itself with Dan Quinn coming in, they could end up being the favorites of the division. But that's a lot to fix, especially without the talent being there. And then them spending, another pick on a linebacker essentially when, they've done it time and time and time again. Not saying that the linebacker is bad, but obviously with the injury history, it's an issue. But they've neglected their secondary. It's a whole hot mess.
Yeah, at the end of the day with their defense, I think it's every time you transition coaches, it's a 2-year process to get your players in check. And it'll be interesting to see how they utilize some of those guys, but I just think it's a 2-year deal. And so, yes, I think their defense will be improved because it was historically one of the worst defenses in all of football last year. But I don't think it's enough to make them the favorite in the NFC East.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's not even close. Like the Vegas lines aren't even close. Like, all right, so to win the division, right? Dallas is at plus 135. Washington's at plus 200. The New York Giants are at plus 450. So that's triple the amount of what the Dallas Cowboys have. I mean, like that's almost, I mean, it's just weird, especially with it being the NFC East, which nobody ever knows which team is good, which team is bad when it comes to divisions. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking at plus 200, Washington should be an easy click, as in like taking that bet. Like I've already put $50 on it today when I looked at it and I saw that line, because all you're going to hear now is hype for the rest of training camp. And we're already at a bare minimum, right? Like for our quarterback position, right? Ryan Fitzpatrick, he could bust, but that's not the expectation. He's going to end up running a decent offense, having a 65% completion rate, or 62-ish, 62, 65%. So we're expecting him to just essentially be a game manager who can make plays. He might chuck it a few times, but I'm pretty sure Ron Rivera is like, hey, we don't need you to do what you've been doing in recent history. Like the cards aren't on the table for you. We just need you to not turn the ball over. So we have an expectation, right? If Taylor Heinicke ends up being that guy, we can actually surpass that, right? And he shows that he can make plays and not turn the ball over and not be as risky. then we're sitting there looking at a better situation. So it's like we already have a floor of where we're going to be and what we can expect because it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, but that floor can easily come up if Taylor Heinicke is the starter. If Taylor Heinicke sucks, right, and he ends up getting pulled, that's not a big deal because we're already expecting bare minimum 7-10 record from Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's bare minimum.
Yeah, I think our floor is exactly what it was last year. You couldn't get worse quarterback play from a team than we had last year. Dwayne Haskins. It was, Alex Smith was solid, but he wasn't good. And when you think about this year coming in, Fitz is going to throw it. And actually, it's only protecting the ball with him, but he's going to throw it all over the place. And he's going to put up some nice statistics. I take Heinicke any day over Dwayne Haskins right now. So I think the bare minimum, the floor for them is 7-10, just like last year. And that's if Fitz completely bombs and the quarterback play is horrible. But their defense is better. We have better weapons. I think our offensive line will be better. All around, the whole team is much better. We're at 8.5 right now. I'll never put money on them because I don't want to be the one to jinx them, but I think it's a safe one.
Yeah, I got you pretty locked in. All right, so let's just talk about the other situations. That's where the other teams can actually win the division, right? Daniel Jones is now surrounded by weapons. He doesn't hold on to the ball as long and take as many sacks inside the pocket, doesn't fumble as often because his weapons are getting open, which they might not have been as often last year. They were pretty subpar when it comes to target separation per target. I think that was more on Daniel Jones not recognizing when certain players were open and also drops. But at the same time, it could end up working out for Daniel Jones, right? His offensive line, they have 3 players going into their second year. They ended up rolling out, 3 rookies with Shane Lemieux, Andrew Thomas, and I believe I'm missing one. But three young ones. I'm sorry?
Matt Pert.
Pert, yep. So, they rolled out 3 rookies last year, 3, players in their first couple of years. You now have at least a second year coming in of experience. I'm liking that kind of dynamic that you could have with Daniel Jones, but I think it's an issue with Daniel Jones, not with his weapons. So that's one situation is it's not Daniel Jones, it was his weapons, right? And that could end up allowing the Giants to beat us. They did bring in Adoree Jackson. I believe that was, they brought in Adoree Jackson. They have Bradbury, who's a shutdown corner to an extent. Adoree Jackson's speed would match up with Curtis Samuel's. You have Bradbury matching up with Terry McLaurin. So they could end up taking a couple games away from us. It's very possible.
Yeah.
Anyways, and they Giants, did last year.
If you talk to anybody about the Giants, they love their defense. They love the direction that it's going. They drafted Azeez Ojulari to be that rush specialist that they did not have last year. Basically, the only pass rush that they had was out of our boy, the
Leonard Williams?
Yeah, Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
Outside of that, their rush was minimal. So I think that defense is going in the right direction. If you talk to anybody, they'll say that they've got some of the best safeties in the game. They love that secondary. I think it's strong. I don't think it's the best secondary in the NFC East.
Because you know who's in.
But I do like the Giants' chances. I think it all comes down to Saquon if he can be healthy to take pressure off of Jones because he is absolutely a head case with the ball at times. He makes questionable decisions. He has for years. So if he can clean that up, the Giants could be easily. I like their chances way better than the Cowboys.
So Phil asked in the chat, what am I drinking, Chase? He said Yahoo and Scotch is what Oklahoma said over there. So no, it's actually Cabernet. I don't remember the name of it. My friend brought it in town. So we had dinner tonight and I'm finishing off a fine glass of Cabernet. I'll put the name of it in the description of the show afterwards, but it's actually delicious. It's very full and it has a great mouthfeel. So anyways, so that's the Giants wrapping it up. I mean, the Giants could end, pushing Washington out of first place of the division. The other team, if it all goes right, is Philadelphia, which I think is probably the least likely to win the division. But every time we look at this division and we say, oh, there's no way they're winning the division, they end up winning the division. So I think Philly actually could end up making a run. Their secondary is porous at best, but they still have Darius Slay. Their whole team was beat up last year. And this is a team that ended up, dominating for years and years. Yes, they might end up being washed at this point, but I still think the Eagles have the talent necessary to do it. I just think that they have a lot of holes.
What have the Eagles done to correct their depth issues along the offensive line?
I'm not frozen. I'm just thinking.
I know. You don't have to think much longer. It's nothing. They haven't done anything. So what makes you think that they're going to be in a better situation this year? Devonta's already hurt. He's already got the sprained knee. And as a rookie,
it's kind of precautionary, kind of.
It might be. So what? I think, outside of tight end, wide receiver might be the hardest position to adapt. I mean, obviously quarterback, but to adapt to the NFL level. So I think Devonta needs to practice as much as possible. And if he's missing time because of his knee, he's only hurting himself.
Yeah. I still think the tight ends are going to be the biggest asset to this offense, right? But now they have weapons and now they have speed. They added Kenny Gainwell to the running back position to be able to catch passes out of the backfield. Still not going to help too much because the NFC East is the best at stopping pass catching running backs. You can find it in my dose score, which is about to debut on the website this week. It's dump off containment efficiency. So the NFC East is the best at containing pass catching running backs. If this ends up affecting the whole Eagles organization and Jalen Hurts, he doesn't need to pass. He's going to end up running the ball anyways. So we sit there and we look at that. I feel like that's where they could really hurt us is by employing Jalen Hurts into the right roles. I know that we got Jamin Davis and stuff. I know that there are certain assets among each defense. Mike Parsons, we have Blake Martinez.
Yeah.
But they play other teams outside the NFC East. So even if they aren't able to dominate, Jalen Hurts still did to us, at least in fantasy perspective. I feel like there's still a chance for the Eagles to be very good. I give that a very low percentage chance because I think it's kind of a rebuild. Oh, did I lose you?
I'm here.
I'm here. It was probably me.
I think it was.
The Eagles don't want Jalen Hurts to do well. And the whole process, my whole thought process behind this is because of the fact that if you all take into account the salary cap, right, and how the TV contracts are about to work out, it's going to take 2 years for the TV contracts to have an effect on the salary cap in a massive way. That means that Jalen Hurts is going to be coming into free agency and getting a new contract at the same time that the salary cap blows up. So you talk about players like Deshaun Watson, who just got a new contract, last year, right? You talk about some of these other players that just negotiated a contract or will this upcoming year. These players are locked in for 3 to 4 years minimum with a decent salary cap figure, right? They're going to end up being like the 12th or 15th, highest paid player, being a top end player at their position. If you have to pay a Jalen Hurts right when the salary cap blows up, first off, you only have 2 years with Jalen Hurts, and he's not, unless he's a superstar, right? He's not going to be able to show enough to really put him on the next level, but he's going to demand a very, very high amount. We're talking about probably more than what Patrick Mahomes is going to be paid at that time in that the contract because of the way the cap works out and the percentage that the quarterbacks get paid from the salary cap. So if we look at that, they do not want Jalen Hurts to do anything above or anything below superstar level or anything above average because then they're going to have to pay him. It's a difficult situation. They don't want him to do that. That's why they haven't surrounded him with talent. They're rebuilding, and they're going to end up revamping it and trying to get their players in the best position for 2023, in my opinion.
So he has 3 years left on his deal this year and then 2 years after. There is no way. I think Howie is not going to survive another year if it's like last year. I think Howie's gone. So in Howie's opinion, they're going for it. They're trying to win football games. I think that's the only reason why Ertz is still on the roster because he's probably slides into the number 2, but he does give that offense another dynamic that they need. Outside of being, Devonta, they're going to need another piece to actually help with that offense. But they have the 2 first rounders already. We know that with the Wentz injury, it's probably only 2 first rounders and not the 3. But I just don't see it from them. I don't like their defense. You talk to any Eagles guy, they still hype up that D-line and they hype up that secondary, but they still have the worst linebackers in football, and I don't think that secondary is that good. I don't see it out of the Eagles at all this year.
So Phil actually has a question, right? He does the show with me on Wednesdays. You guys can go check it out. Dynasty or Fantasy Intervention over there on Wednesdays at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. If they go 9-8 and miss the playoffs, do you think Howie Roseman keeps his job? I think he does. I think he's locked into his job for one more year if they have a winning record. Even though they might miss the playoffs, it's a rebuilding team. They're not in a good position. They got.
I mean, realistically, they play a very similar schedule as we do. Where do you see them having success? Against the Chiefs, against the
like we said,
Chargers,
we're talking about ways that Washington does not win the division, right? So we're talking about Jalen Hurts having to have like a superstar-esque year, not a good year, not a great year, but a superstar-esque year. If he has that superstar-esque year, but they still go 9-8 because their defense is bad, I still think that he could end up keeping his job because he's developing a quarterback. He's surrounding him with weapons. Obviously, Smith will have to have a good year, or Jalen Reagor, which means that one of his past 2 first-round picks is panning out. And then you have Goddard, who he selected as well. Maybe they end up moving Ertz at some point in time and get, draft picks back. And Roseman's like, hey, I got more draft picks. I'm ready to rock and roll. Give me one more year. Right. And maybe next year's that year. But if he does poorly and they tank on purpose, I could also see to an extent where he gets another year. I don't think that he's going to make it at that point. But if they go 9-8 and they miss the playoffs, it would have to be Jalen Hurts having a great year, superstar type year, while their defense is just completely porous, right?
I don't know. I think 9-8 might be the best they can possibly do. Their defense, I mean, Fletcher Cox would have to play, absolutely lights out and help that defense. It's not going to be Jalen Hurts doing the whole thing. We've seen what he's capable of doing. We've seen what he's done for the last 6 years, in college included. He's a good football player, but he is not that next level quarterback to be that superstar in order for them to go 9-8. He's not that guy.
All right, so let's go ahead. We got the Eagles. Low chance that's going to happen, but in order for them to happen, Jalen Hurts has to play lights out, and you're saying Fletcher Cox, along with other defensive, in order to knock Washington out of first place. But let's go to the Cowboys, right? Because Cowboys are probably the most likely team to knock us out of first place, and that's why the Vegas odds have them at only plus 135, right? So sitting there and looking at it, does Dallas's defense have to be an above-average defense, or can they win up against this schedule with having just an insanely good offense with no defense? Because don't forget about the Chiefs back a couple years ago, right? The Chiefs defense was terribly bad, and yet they still ended up, finishing first in their division.
If their defense is, say, 20th, they probably win. I mean, there were games at the beginning of the season with Dak. They lost to Cleveland, I believe. They lost some very close games at the beginning of the year that were tough games where there was a ton of points. If their defense is 20th, maybe even 20th, I'll give you, they can win the division. Absolutely. 25th, you're still a bad defense. You're still giving up a ton of points. But if you're 20th, and I mean, this is going from, they had to have been 32nd last year. Do I even have to look at that?
It's very close to that, if not. Yeah. I mean, Dallas's defense was one of the worst in the NFL.
If they go to 20th, that would be an absolute jump and a huge success for the coaching staff in Dallas. I think they could. If they go to 20th defensively, I absolutely think they can win the division. Not even close. So you're not even in the top half. I think they could win the division, yes.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty likely, to be honest with you. If Fitzpatrick falters, I think it's more on the point of Washington not getting the floor out of their quarterbacks versus getting, an average output of their quarterbacks, in Dallas's, defense being better and all that stuff. If Dallas defense is lights out and Dan Quinn comes in and shows everything up, which, I mean, don't forget, like Greg Williams type coaches, these coaches who are, they're head coach worthy.
Yeah.
Because they're the best defensive coordinator in the league at that time. So they get promoted to become a head coach, or one of the best, coordinators in the league that time. They can make, team altering decisions in certain play calls with certain, development of players, with deciding the positions for the play. Like, there's so many different variations when it comes to getting the most out of your team. And not all defensive coordinators can do that. Dan Quinn is one of those players, or one of those coaches that can do that.
I do think Dan Quinn was a very, very good defensive coordinator. But Dan Quinn was stacked in Seattle. And I know where you're going with this next one.
I'm pissed, man, because Bill brought up Malik Hooker.
No, I know.
Washington needs a free safety, right? Like more than anything, Washington's weakest point is free safety, and Malik Hooker is a ball hawk, right? If Malik Hooker ends up having like 6 interceptions this season, 7, 8, even 10 interceptions possibly, I don't think he has 10, but if he ends up having like 6 and plays a full season, that wouldn't shock me.
No, and it really was a great signing. Absolutely. Fantastic.
It was a phenomenal signing. And I was sitting there, I was so mad when Washington.
I knew it.
Like I've been talking about it because Washington needs a ball hawk. We don't have those guys who garner a ton of interceptions outside of Fuller. I mean, yeah, sure, William Jackson catch a few balls. We have some, St. John Baptiste, who has a longer frame, could end up being somewhat of a ball hawk, but he's not. He's a ball defender. He's not an interception specialist. We have Malik Hooker, who's an interception specialist. And on third downs, where they're going to be sitting in third and longs, we have Chase Young, we have Tim Settle, we have Matt Ioannidis, we have Jonathan Allen, we've got Montez Sweat. We have guys who are going to put them in third and longs, right? And you're going to send the blitz after them, and there are going to be opportunities for interceptions. And you have who? Landon Collins?
Luke.
Who?
Training camp here. I don't know. I keep hearing about Cole Luke. He's having a pick a day at least. No, I'm just kidding. He's one of those training camp names that keeps getting tossed around. But no, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. I think it's going to be very interesting. You've seen how they've come out with their first team on defense the last week of training camp, and you've seen a lot of Cam Curl and Landon Collins at the same time. Nothing but good things about Landon Collins. Supposedly he's going to be defensive MVP this year. But I know what you're saying. I don't disagree with you. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Bobby McCain.
Well, this should be a game changer, though, with Malik Hooker for Dallas is essentially where we're getting, where those turnovers end up sealing a game. You're coming down the field, right? These teams are driving down in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes left on the clock, and all of a sudden Malik Hooker picks them off on third down and changes the whole position of the game. That is the kind of playmaking that you need to see from Dallas to get them to maximize their potential and to finish up as the top overall team in this division. So I think that Dallas is not warranted to have the top position spot from the Vegas odds, being at plus 135 for the division. Meanwhile, Washington sits at 200. But I get where they could be coming from, and especially because people bet heavy on Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's going to end up swaying the odds anyways.
I mean, the hype train is running for sure. It is going right now for Dallas. Absolutely.
So as we sit there, we look at some of the other odds, right? Let's go ahead and instead of discussing best records and stuff, because we have gotten a little hot and heavy on this discussion, and I feel like it's only going to get hot and heavier as we go on. Let's go ahead and look at the quarterback position, because Washington football team quarterbacks last year threw for 3,796 yards as a whole. So 3,800 yards. To crack 4,000 yards doesn't seem like it's that difficult of a task, but it's not like it happens for every single quarterback, right? So sitting there and looking at it, are we expecting Ryan Fitzpatrick to surpass 3,800? Before you say yes or no, if Taylor Heinicke takes over position, then all bets are off. And there is a chance that happens. You weren't here last week, but we went through their schedule last week, as a whole. And we're talking about a 5 or 6 game stretch where they play it's the Chiefs, it's the Packers, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have it's 4 out of 5 games are at least minimal tough games, and they happen at the beginning of the season, as to where Ryan Fitzpatrick could get benched if he throws multiple interceptions. So sitting there and looking at it, is it a chance that he could get benched, or do you think he's starting the whole season and he surpasses 4,000 passing yards?
I think combined, even if they both play, it'll be over 4. And I was going to say purely because of their schedule. They're going to have to throw the ball regardless. So I think the yards are going to come. I think that's an easy one to say it's an over for sure.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is the one I was asking you about.
I think he's absolutely over 4 this year.
Okay. You think he's starting the full season? He's not getting replaced at any point?
No.
Oh, put you on that spot.
No, I really don't. I think our defense is very good. I think our team is much better. Um, who was that PFF that had them the fourth most improved team in the NFL this year? I mean, I think they have really shored up some weaknesses on that team that they needed to this offseason. And they've added the weapons. They've added more help on defense. Um, I'm excited. I think they took care of business. I think Fitz plays the whole season. Yes.
Okay, Logan Thomas, over under 28 passing yards.
Over for sure. He's getting 2 attempts this year.
He's into it. I like that. No. So, all right, real quick, I was just messing around with you, but would you actually bet on Fitzpatrick if you had $50, right, as disposable income, and you could take one bet? Would you bet on Ryan Fitzpatrick getting over 4,000 yards?
Yes.
Okay, that's in there. I would not. It's not a hit on Fitzpatrick as much as it is just an indictment on the passing game opportunities and us possibly using a little bit more of Antonio Gibson, out of the backfield. I think Antonio Gibson's going to be the offensive MVP for the Washington football team. So let's go ahead and let's hop on to the running back position since we're here. Antonio Gibson had 795 yards. I think if I ask you over under 800 yards, it's an easy one, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bump it up. He had a total of 1,050 or so all-purpose yards. I think that they could easily surpass 1,250 personally, like 200 extra rushing yards, receiving yards. That's not even a debate for me. So if I move it all the way up to 1,400 all-purpose yards, are you touching that over for Antonio Gibson, or do you think that's accurate, or are you touching the under?
I'm still taking the under on that. I don't think he goes over 14.
For all-purpose yards.
Correct.
He only had 36 receptions for 247 yards. So what do you think his receiving game lies at? Because I think he's going to take over a bigger role in the receiving game. His big issue was not being able to pass block last year because they didn't have an offseason to work on it. So I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, dude, Antonio Gibson is going to crush that moving forward. Like, is he going to crush it?
Theoretically, he should. No question. But I don't think they are going to drive him into the ground in the 17-game schedule. I think they're going to use him, and I think they're going to still use McKissick. I think you may see more Peyton Barber. I do not see them driving him into the ground where he just gets that McCaffrey workload that he did in year 2.
But, I mean, it was Ron Rivera with McCaffrey, right? So
It was. But we are into an offseason where we still don't know if Gibson's 100%. Why take the chance in a 17-game season?
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, we do have a 17-game season, so I actually did not adjust for that when I was doing the over-under. So sorry about that, guys. I should have said like 4,300 for Ryan Fitzpatrick passing. But as for McKissick, I mean, I think that he easily hit 1,400 this upcoming year. I think that he's going to see probably close to 600 yards in the receiving game compared to 247 from last year. Meanwhile, his rushing attempts are going to go up. Don't forget, he only played 14 games last year, and he didn't have a role in the offense until week 5 or 6. So I feel like Antonio Gibson is a lock to at least get 1,400 yards this upcoming year. Let's go ahead and let's hop over to we'll go with Peyton Barber, right?
Okay. All right. No. Continue. I thought you were going to script the defense. I was going to slow you down, but continue.
Oh, no.
All right, go.
Sure. I've got a whole game plan lined up in my head. I mean, it's just in my head. But, sitting there and looking at it, Peyton Barber had 4 touchdowns last season, right? He was the goal line back. However, 2 of those touchdowns, I believe, came in one game. Sitting there and looking at it, is he going to be the goal line back moving forward? Does he end up kind of phasing himself out of the offense because of his inability to be efficient and pretty much just be a wrecking ball where he just throws his body forward, 2 yards every time he gets a shot?
I heard Peyton Barber's a new man this year. I hear he looks great.
He slimmed down, right? He slimmed down.
I think he plays a role. I absolutely do. What's the over? Are we keeping the four touchdowns? Is that the over under? Or is that
We're going to go with the touchdowns. Is he going to be over under 4 touchdowns this upcoming season? Keep in mind, he got 2 touchdowns in one game back in 2020.
And he started 2 games last year.
Technically, I guess, but yeah. I mean, so like week 1, he had 29 touches, I believe, and McKissick had 31. McKissick was, because I just did I'm doing an article currently for DFS week 1. McKissick was listed as a starter for week 1. Peyton Barber still got 29 touches. I think 4 of them came at the goal line. He scored on 2. Or 20. Did I say 29 touches? He had 29 snaps. I apologize. So he wasn't listed as a starter, but he saw just as many snaps as the starter saw.
No, I'm going under.
Why is that?
I just don't think he's going to be the goal line back as much. I think he's still going to get touches. I still think he's going to complement. He could definitely get 100 touches this year, but I don't think you're going to see him in the goal line as much.
Okay. All right. I can take that. I can roll with it. I can dig it. All right.
What are
Let's go
your
to McKissick.
Do you agree or no?
Yeah, I think I already have Antonio Gibson taking over a bell cow route, a bell
Yeah,
cow
okay.
role.
That makes
Excuse me. So sitting there and looking at it, I think I can hear myself in the background. Let's go ahead and go to J.D. McKissick real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of McKissick with his 80 receptions?
I'm going under. I think that's a ton, and I think a lot of it was in part Alex Smith. So, without check down King, I think it's definitely under. I think he easily gets 50, but I don't think he gets 80.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with you. I don't see that happening like in any shape or form. Like people that are selling themselves that McKissick is going to be the third down back, I don't think he is. I think he's going to see probably 40 receptions versus 80. I don't think it's going to be remotely close. All right.
It all depends on Gibson's health and everything along those lines too. Could he get to it? Yeah, but I don't see. I see it definitely being 50.
Okay, I 100% buy into that. But our receiving corps over there is a whole new animal, right? Like we have, Curtis Samuel added to this offense, who was coached over there. With Ron Rivera, where he was used as a deep threat receiver, which that I hate. We got T.I. Brown, we got Adam Humphries. I mean, we're sitting there and we're looking at it, and Kelvin Harmon's making plays in training camp. We saw it with the highlight video, of course.
Everyone is right now at the receiver position. It really is. It sucks.
Do the Giants have the best wide receiver room, or does Washington?
On paper, the Giants do. We'll give it to them right now. They can have it.
Okay. All right. I'll take that. So sitting there and looking at it, right? Outside of McLaurin, who is going to lead the team in targets? And let's see who ends up. Let's make a prediction on the player with the most touchdowns.
All right, I'm gonna go. Okay, because I went kind of heavy on this. I'm gonna give you my top 3 targets on the team.
Oh God, you're gonna say Adam Humphries is number 1, aren't you?
Absolutely not. No, it's definitely gonna be Terry, and he had 134 targets last year. I think it's up. I take the over on that this year. Absolutely. My number 2 is Logan Thomas. He had 72 targets last year. I think it's up. I think he is going to be his second year as a full-time tight end. I think he's going to get better this year. And if you go back and look at Fitz, he loves the tight end. And I mean go back years. And not only does Fitz like a tight end, but Scott Turner loves the tight end as well. So I think he's number 2, and I think his targets are up. Number 3, Adam Humphries. I think he's going to be your targets guy. I do. I think he's going to be 3. Yeah. But your Snapple fun fact of the day for tight ends, because that's what I was really looking on. I wanted to see Logan Thomas, what he's going to do. Mike Gesicki in 2019 had 89 targets with Miami. 2012, the number 1 leader in targets was Stevie Johnson. Okay, he had 148. Number 2 was Scott Chandler with 74. 2011, Stevie Johnson again with 134. David Nelson with 97. Okay. Now, obviously the Bills used the tight end a heck of a lot more back then. The other year that I looked at was 2015 when Fitz was with the Jets. Now, I only use these years specifically because Fitz played the majority of the season. It was like 14, 15 games. So I pulled those games. But Brandon Marshall, 173 targets. And Eric Decker, this was the oddball one.
2015, right?
132 targets.
He hyper targets the wide receiver position in a lot of different cases.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the tight end for the Jets that year. It was a reach. It was not good. So I just think he hammered the wide receivers. But those are my top three. I think Terry's going to eat it up. I think it's going to be reminiscent of Garcon getting all those looks back when Shanahan was here. But I still think Logan Thomas is going to do a lot of work. Samuel's tough. Samuel's tough to kind of predict as to what, he's going to do. But
I don't like it. I don't like Samuel scared me far away from him because, and it's not even him, it's just the coaching staff, man. Like if they use him underneath, it'd be great. I would gamble on him all day.
But defenses are going to have to game plan, and he's going to be able to do anything and anything. I mean, they can literally line him up anywhere. I know. Hell, go with a 4 receiver set. Who cares? Put him in the slot. Have him. The rotations on this roster, because the competition is so good, there's going to be fronts and variations on both sides of the ball where who the hell knows who's lining up where at any point in time.
Let's bring up Logan Thomas, right? Because Logan Thomas, saw 110 targets last year, just as many as J.D. McKissick, by the way, and had 8 less receptions than J.D. McKissick. But sitting there looking at Logan Thomas is our weapon over there, for the big player position. Like if we sit there and we look at it, there's nobody that's a big type receiver outside of Antonio Gandy-Golden, who's
again has been doing well in camp. Yeah, I agree with you. Gandy Golden. I mean, Kelvin Harmon's what, 6'1", 6'2", maybe. I think
he's 6'2". He could be 6'1".
6'1", 6'2", but he plays bigger than he actually is.
Yeah, he plays like a tight end, to be honest. But he plays like a move tight end. He's not a big physical receiver that's going to box people out and get catches in the red zone. So if we sit there and we look at it, Logan Thomas had 6 touchdown receptions last season.
Correct.
So
I still like that number. I like 8 this year from him.
8, okay. I think the offense is going to be better. He's going to have more opportunities.
The only other goal line red zone threat is going to be John Bates.
John Terrell Emmons gone.
But no, I do like Logan a lot this year, and the fact that last year was his first full season at tight end and really playing the position. I think he's going to get better as a football player.
Yeah, Dontrell Inman's gone, so our red zone, attack is going to be very limited now outside of Logan Thomas.
Yeah, it is going to be very interesting to see.
Bentley, really, your butt's in the camera, bro. Your butt is in the camera.
Wide receiver room after camp.
Get your butt out of here, Ben. Go. All right, so you guys are not on the live stream. You all need to be on the live stream to see my dog's butt. All right, so let's go ahead and hop over to the defense. There's a few questions about this defense, right? But very few questions. The questions revolve around who's going to lead the team in sacks. I think that's going to be a given with Chase Young. But Montez Sweat, man, like he looked good last year.
I'm not saying that's a given. I think that's probably inside the locker room competition between the two. I 100% think that they're going to push each other. I don't think it's a lock for Chase. I don't think it's a lock at all.
I almost hate this defense because it's going to be tough to know which player gets the most sacks on this team because everybody's going to be taking sacks away from each other. Like Chase Young will never set a sack record because of the fact that there's always going to be players around him that are stealing sacks from him, and he won't be in the single pursuit. We look at Shannon or Strahan, right? Strahan always had one good edge rusher, right? That could force him over his way, but there was never like a dominant defensive tackle with a good edge rusher that he played with and good linebackers. Like there's always, like you didn't have a whole whole slew of different players that could end up getting to the quarterback just as fast as he could. I mean, you know,
It depends how they play, though. It really does depend how they utilize them. If they change and offset the look a little bit, do I think he's going to break Strahan's record? No. It'll be interesting. I don't think they're going to be able to double team him as much and triple team him as much. They're going to have to do some other things to kind of. He's going to be free. There's going to be guys that are free.
so who's going to end up leading the team in sacks though?
I'm going Montez again.
Gonna go Montez because
He
Montez
just
had
eats
9
all the
last year.
extra. He just eats all the extra leftovers. I mean, he gets.
Because nobody double teams him. That's what I'm saying. Like he can end up getting every butt.
What are you going to double team? Allen. I mean, you're not going to double team Allen? Okay, don't. You're not going to double team Payne? Okay, don't. I mean, all those guys are going to make you pay one way or another.
Landon Collins is going to lead the team in sacks.
Get the hell out of here.
All right, and then I'll put a player out there and ask, what percentage chance do you think that he takes of Jamin Davis leading the team in sacks in his rookie year?
Nah, it's none.
None? They're saying that he's going to be used as an edge rusher now, which makes no sense to me. But they're saying John Bostic is doing so well in camp that it's going to force Jamin Davis to be the strong side linebacker and be the primary blitzer out of the linebacker core.
No, he's not going to lead. There's a 0% chance that he leads the team in sacks.
Okay.
What's the blitz percentage of the Redskins or the Washington football team last year?
We actually had a decent blitz percentage because our cornerbacks were so good that we ended up getting to the quarterback faster to try and create turnovers. But I don't have the blitz percentage on.
Yeah, I'd like to see what that number is because I felt like maybe we blitzed occasionally. You had to blitz with Bostic because he couldn't cover anybody. Although I was digging, and when I was digging, I found some very disheartening information that it wasn't Bostic that was our worst pass coverage linebacker. It was KPL. He was atrocious in every facet of the game in pass coverage last year. Statistically, QB ratings were 110. He had the highest QB rating against of all of our defense last year, even Troy Apke. And he gave up the best completion percentage. So him being off that defense is going to be very nice. But Khaleke Hudson is a guy that's going to get a lot of looks in that Buffalo nickel position. And Cole Holcomb has supposedly been an absolute freak.
So we were 13th in the league in blitz percentage. We had 32.4% blitz rate. And I know that actually dropped over the final few weeks because I know we were top 10 at one point just because of the DFS show that I was doing. But yeah, we were up there in blitz percentage. So I honestly, I don't know that anybody breaks 10 this year. Nobody broke 10 last year. I don't think anybody breaks 10 this year.
And that's the crazy thing because they had 47 sacks as a team last year. Nobody broke 10. I mean, Settle had 5. Kerrigan had 5.5. Allen didn't have many. What do you have, 2? But you had 7.5 out of Chase, 9 out of Montez. What is, in your Google really quick, what is the most sacks in a season by a defense?
Oh, it's way up there. If you're including, remember the Titans? It's astronomical. I think, what's his name? Gary ended up having more than any NFL team ever in NFL history.
If you're including.
No, that's a real team. And he had some astronomical number. So, yeah, but he ended up putting up 58 sacks in a season by himself. But that's in high school. So.
72.
Yeah, it's up to, I was going to say 78. 72. Chicago oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Chicago team. So it makes
I don't know.
sense.
I absolutely think that they can make a run at a stupid number like that. Do I think they're going to beat Chicago Bears sack record? No, but I think that they could absolutely go get 60 sacks next year. So why can't I absolutely do think there'll be 2 guys over double digits next year. Absolutely. Chase and Sweat will both be over double digits.
I could not put money on that. I could not.
Absolutely. I'll put money on that before Fitz is 37.
Oof, okay. All right. I see how you're rolling. So
17
let's.
game schedule.
True. Yeah, I always forget about that. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at interceptions, right? Because that's something that this Washington team's always struggled with. We had Kenneth Fuller who put up 4 this year. If we had Malik Hooker, he'd probably put up 10. We don't have Malik Hooker, so he's going to put up none for the Washington football team. Cameron Crowe had 3 last year. That was good, right? Like that was okay. Especially for a strong safety. Or I said Cameron Crowe, right? Yeah, Kendall Fuller had 4 last year. We had Deron Payne who had 1, Montez Sweat who had 1, Landon Collins who had 1, and then we had like Jeremy Reeves, and it's all kind of spread around. There's still a decent amount of like interceptions as a whole. As we sit there, do we think it's going to be north of 16 interceptions this upcoming season?
Yeah,
I think so too. I actually have that as a lock that we're going to have an improved interception rate. I mean, we get to play Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts twice in a season. We don't get to play Andy Dalton twice in a season anymore. But, it'll be interesting. We have, don't forget, we have Aaron Rodgers. We have Tom Brady. We have
Jameis
Patrick
Winston.
Mahomes.
That's at least 4.
So Jameis Winston's been majorly improved. He completed every pass in camp the other day. He completed every pass where a player didn't get tackled before the pass actually made it to the player. So I'm just saying it could happen. It could happen where he throws 0 interceptions against us. I don't know, man. I don't 16 interceptions is a lot of interceptions on a team. But yet if we have a player like, Kenneth Fuller or William Jackson, for example, they could put up 6 to 8 interceptions. I mean, we're halfway there, right?
I think when you add the fact that our backers are going to be much improved, and it's not just going to be easy to attack our backers, it's going to make things a lot more challenging. I think the secondary is, I thought Darby was good last year. Yes, he got beat up occasionally. They took some shots on Darby, but I thought he was actually very good for what we signed Darby for last year. But when you add William Jackson opposite of Fuller, I mean, they didn't attack Fuller last year. They attacked Darby. So it's going to be more than 16.
I mean, keep in mind, so William Jackson, right, he only has 2 interceptions in his history.
Fine.
Of games.
So they're going to throw at Kendall Fuller this year. They're not going to throw at Jackson.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, and the amount of pressure they can get on the quarterback is going to also create a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what does it. When you're forcing the quarterbacks to make mistakes, that's where Daniel Jones is going to make his mistakes, is when the pressure gets to him.
All right, so let's go ahead. Let's finish out this episode real quick. It's been going for 53 minutes now. Let's go ahead and get out of here. I want to get your take on to the final record for the Washington football team. What's the Vegas odds sitting at right now?
8.5.
8.5 wins on a 17-game season. That's brutal, right? That puts us with a losing record. I mean, obviously, we think it's going to be above it because if we go back to my records, we have us losing like 2 games in the season, right?
Yeah.
So
I was afraid to put a bet on a 5.5 last year. I didn't do it. A good friend of mine did, and he ended up $1,000 richer. So if I'm playing with house money, I'll put money on it, but I normally wouldn't in a million years.
Come on. It would be over though, right? It would have to be over.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
8.5 games is just brutal. Like that means that we lost like all of our divisional games essentially. We lost that stretch. Like there's no way that happens to me. Hold on. I'm going to pull up Washington football team schedule real quick. Do you have it up?
Mm-hmm.
You already have it up right now currently?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go through the games real quick. Let's run through it real quick, and then we're going to get out of here. And we're going to just do a win-loss thing. Let's say
worst case scenario.
Yes, worst case scenario. Let's say that we absolutely suck this year. Ryan Fitzpatrick throws 2 interceptions a game. What's the worst case scenario that we could end up over there?
We lose LA week 1.
Okay. Yep. Loss.
Giants.
Loss if Daniel Jones is approved or our secondary can't keep up. I don't really see that happening.
It's a primetime game. We lose.
Yeah, it's a prime. Oh, good.
Buffalo.
Game.
We lose.
Lose. Definitely loss.
We're not losing to the Falcons.
Nope, that's the win.
The Saints. Jameis Winston doesn't throw an incomplete pass. I don't.
Yeah, that's a loss.
The Chiefs.
That's
the Packers.
Loss.
We can't lose to the Broncos.
No, we can't.
The Buccaneers.
That's a loss.
We can't lose to the Panthers.
Oh, that's a bit of
No.
They beat us last year.
Yeah, who played quarterback?
I don't know.
We don't even know because we had 4 of them last year.
All right, I'm gonna put an X right here just to signify that it's half and half. But go ahead.
Seattle.
That's a loss.
Las Vegas.
That's a win.
Dallas.
That's a loss. I mean, if we're doing worst case scenario, Dak Prescott plays lights out.
This one's at home. Yeah, this one's at home.
All right, I'll take the home one. We'll consider the home one win.
Philadelphia.
I still don't know how we could lose that. I really don't. Like, even if
Dallas
plays lights out.
Philadelphia. Giants. I mean,
so
worst
all right,
case
so
scenario,
wait.
that's
You
what
said
takes
Dallas,
wins.
Philadelphia, Giants. That's 3 games left out for the divisional games. We're still sitting at 5.5 wins before the final 3 divisional games, which the NFC East always ends up doing something insanely.
So we're still 6.5, maybe 7.
Yeah.
Worst case.
Worst,
Again,
absolute worst case scenario where there's not a shot that we win these games.
It comes back to the floor. You know, our floor is exactly what we had at a quarterback play last year, and that's 7 wins.
Yeah, and we're looking at 7.5 wins floor. I don't understand how we could actually be worse than 8 wins. I'm locking that in 100%, 10 times out of 10 that we're going to have a better record than that. I don't care. Like, we could end up having no quarterback, which we had last year, and we're still going to hit that number. We have a really tough, with us winning the division, it set us up with a brutal, upcoming schedule with the extra 2 games. I'm still taking that plus 8 wins. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
I agree 100%, but I'm not going to do it because I'm superstitious.
I threw my pen at you.
I won't do it.
Oh man.
Because I'll blame myself. I'll be like, we only won 8 games because of me. I won't do it.
It's like me with the jerseys. All right, man. Let us know where to find you.
You can find me on Twitter and actually Instagram.
Why'd you say that so weird? You're like Twitter?
At Mark Kropp.
You guys go check us out over there at Fantasy Intervention at Join Our Circle _ on Twitter. You guys can go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do that. YouTube.com/Fantasy Intervention. It is a massive help whenever we get an extra subscription. Please go subscribe. Fantasy Intervention. YouTube.com/Fantasy Intervention. You guys can go check out the website at fantasyintervention.com and go check me out at FF_intervention. Thank you guys for listening. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your Washington football team life. We're out.